You're listening to the Cryptid Crew Podcast. I'm your host, Mark Childers. Before we get started, if you've had an encounter or an experience or just something unexplained, click on the link tree in the description and share your encounter. Thank you for listening to the Cryptid Crew Podcast. This episode of the Cryptid Crew Podcast, I would like to welcome to the show founder of Bexar County Bigfoot and Bigfoot researcher, Rod Nichols. Rod, thank you for coming on the show.
It's a pleasure to be here, man. After so many attempts, we finally got it. We finally got it right?
Yes, a couple of times, but it worked out, and I'm glad glad you're able to come on the show.
Well, it's an honor to be on here with you and talking Bigfoot and whatever else.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Always a pleasure to talk about Bigfoot and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just kind of dive into this. But I tell you what, before we get started into some really interesting finds you have made, tell us what got you interested in the world of Bigfoot.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you this. I'm a big advocate for mental health, and especially for men. I'm a big advocate, and I believe in the support and whatever else you can find for yourself. I'll say that first and foremost. Mental health is kind of what got me into this. Inadvertently, I was dealing with some pretty heavy stuff, and it landed me in the hospital, and I had to take some leave from work. I was on disability. I was on long-term disability, to be exact. And, so at the time it was just me by myself. I mean, I wasn't married. My son, he was already, I think, around 12 years old, and, he would go with his mom and, back and forth type of thing. So it was just me more or less by myself. And, just one night, not really having much to do, and I started binge watching on YouTube a channel, and it was a gentleman from Utah, and I don't think he no longer does any research, but he had a channel that had numerous videos on the subject, and I started just watching. I mean, it was intriguing, video after video after video after video. I watched all of his videos in one night, and I was just blown away because what he was showing were footprints, but I think one of the things that stuck out to me, his evidence, were wood structures, and I'd never heard of wood structures. I grew up with what was it, In Search of with Leonard Nimoy, and
right.
Unsolved Mysteries and things of that nature. And you tend to believe that it's just one specimen out there, and it's in Northern California, the Patterson-Gimlin film. That was it. It's out there in the Great Northwest, and that's it. That's kind of the ignorance, I think, and like a lot of other people. And I say ignorance because I just didn't know. We just don't know. And so, I think growing up for myself, I always felt like I was a believer. There was something more out there than what the zoos had, and what your with the wildlife that you see, the usual suspects, squirrels and deer and what have you. But so I was always a believer, always loved the subject, always loved cryptids. I was a big believer in it. So fast forward to binge watching this gentleman's channel. I went through every one of the videos, and again, it was like wood structure after wood structure after wood structure, and he was describing them, and he was showing us, the inside of it and outside, and just, narrating throughout the whole video, and it just blew my mind. It was so crazy. I had no idea that, this kind of stuff was connected to cryptid activity, and so. I watched the last video, and the last video that he had was a video of him breaking down his methodology and what he does to find this evidence, right? Whether it's trace evidence or solid evidence, I think that, he could find, because some of the stuff that he found were like hair samples, and it was really intriguing. So he broke down the methodology, and then he turned around and said, "Hey, if you think that this is a hoax, you think I'm doing this stuff, you think that, I'm just putting you on here, this is what you follow. This is the criteria. Here's the methodology. Go out and see for yourself." So the next day, I obliged, and I took my son out with me, and I applied what what he had laid out, and the same day we went to go look for a wood structure, we found a wood structure, and I was dumbfounded. I couldn't believe what I was looking at. Here it was. The stuff that I had seen on YouTube with this gentleman in Utah, here it is in San Antonio, Texas. And I'm sitting there just going, no way. And if you ever get to my YouTube channel, Bexar County Bigfoot, the first video is of that wood structure, documenting it. And you could hear me say, no way. And my son's like, what? And we're just sitting there just going, I'm sitting there going, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? And I thought for sure that this was going to be one of those things where, I saw a kid or somebody coming out and, building this stuff, or, people just put me on or whatever. And it never happened. And this structure was a beautiful structure. It was an A-frame structure. And it had some really good sized pieces. They were torn out. They were ripped. You can see, the shreds at the bottom. It's all shredded at the bottom and top of the pieces. And they didn't grow in that area. I knew that for a fact. I looked at them. Side was cleaned out. It was a dirt floor, cleaned out though. And there was some foliage, little bits of foliage in there. But what I noticed about the foliage is that it was flat. It was compressed. So that almost led me to believe that something with some weight was in there, or something with weight was in there. So I was blown away. So that started the journey. And I would say every day after that for a solid 7 months, I was out in the woods, out.
Right.
And the next day, I went out and found another one, a new one. I brought my mom with me this time.
Oh, that's
like
awesome.
you do, right?
Sure.
I brought my mom because, I thought if anybody's going to shoot me straight, it's going to be my mother. My mom is a pretty black and white person, and doesn't beat around the bush type of woman. So no nonsense. So I brought her out and I showed her. We found this one wood structure. It was probably about 4 or 5 feet away from a game trail, which kind of made sense because the way it was constructed, it had a bunch of foliage kind of facing that game trail, where it kind of seemed like it was maybe a blind of some sort. And so she was dumbfounded too. She's like, "This is crazy," and I'm thinking, "Do you think a person would build this?" And she's like, "Well, why? What? Look at these things. They look like they were just slapped together very primitively, and it didn't make sense." And I said, "Yeah," I said, "It doesn't make sense at all." So that got me started on that journey, and here we are. I think going on 8 years
Oh, wow.
of doing this. Yeah, so I've been in the game for a little while, mainly focusing on wood structures, but also looking at the topography of my areas, of where I investigate, where I research, and I kind of keep tabs of so many different areas, morning, noon, night. I try to keep up with some of the new stuff that may be there, or sometimes there's nothing, and that's okay. So I can check it off my list and things like that. So, I've been doing it for 8 years, mainly focusing on wood structures. Now I have had a few footprints. I've got a couple of them that I've casted.
Awesome.
I've done a couple of casts. I've seen footprints, and I will say this: people think that when you come up on these things, you're automatically going to find a print. Prints are hard to find. I don't think anybody really realizes that they're not really that easy to find. For whatever reason, they just aren't. Hair sample, the same thing. I just don't go up to these things and be like, "Oh, yeah, of course, here's a hair sample." It just doesn't happen that way. But yeah, I've been at it for about almost 8 years now, and still going, man.
Right. Yeah, that's pretty awesome that, your first outing, you found something like that.
Yeah,
And I guess that gave you the Bigfoot bug, I
it
guess.
did. It did because, and I'm not, it's hard to say. If I had not found anything that day, I still would have pursued more, but I don't know if it would have been with that much passion that I have for it right now. I mean, I can't say that, but I feel like, I tried it, whatever, move on type of thing. But that didn't happen. There was a reason. I think there's a reason why I was supposed to discover this stuff. I don't know why, but it's kept me going. And I have found several of my areas that are all connected by one prominent creek.
Yeah, there is, on the BFRO website, which I use, sometimes, there's a couple of
Hmm.
sightings, 2 or 3 sightings I know in your county that date
Yeah.
back, maybe early 2000s or late 90s. I
Hmm.
can't remember for sure, but,
Hmm. Hmm.
and,
Hmm.
I believe, is it Medina River? Is that right?
Medina, right?
There,
Medina River. Yeah.
yeah, there was one there, if I'm not mistaken.
Absolutely.
I think
Hmm.
both of them were Class A, maybe one Class A, one Class B,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. And
but
that's something to notate the Class A, because that's a full on, I saw the creature, type of sighting. The old one of the oldest encounters and sightings is in the 1970s. And it was around an Air Force base called Kelly Air Force Base. Back at that time, it was more of a wooded area around that Air Force base. It wasn't as developed as it is now. And It was the Olivari family. In fact, William Olivari is a friend of mine on Facebook now, and he was a part. His family was a part. I think he saw the creature as well as one of the neighbors and his brother as well. They just saw. I think they saw a creature once. They found footprints, and actually, it made it on in the newspaper, the local newspaper here back in the 70s. It made it on with the picture and everything of the footprint. They What they saw was, I feel like, was an adult, and then the neighbor saw a juvenile. It was sitting on her back stoop, just hanging out, and she felt something weird was off, and looked back outside her back door, and there this little furry juvenile was sitting there, and she shooed it away and it ran off. So there's and I can tell you that there are, obviously there are people that aren't going to come forward and get on a platform, like the BFRO has, as far as their documented sightings and things like that. There's plenty of people that I've talked to that have had a Class A, Class B, but just really don't want to. They kind of want to shy away from being named and things like that. So we've had our fair share, I think, of sightings and encounters.
yeah, absolutely. A lot of people are afraid, like you mentioned, of ridicule, and I've mentioned
For
that
sure.
several times before.
Yeah.
Worried about what others are going to think, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and there's no telling. We talked about this on a previous episode, a couple episodes ago, and another gentleman, and there's no telling how many sightings go unreported compared
Right.
to how many are reported.
Right. Right. And those are the people that you want to talk to, because the fact that they're not looking to get famous, or they're not looking to have some type of notoriety. Some of them are just plain, they relive it, and it scares them. It really does. I've learned how to, I think in some ways, taking down these reports, or talking to people, you have to be sympathetic. You have to have a sympathetic ear, and you have to be like a counselor in a way, because these people, maybe they're carrying it with them for so long, or maybe their families made fun of them and it really did something to them. It changed their worldview. That's a huge thing for somebody. It really is. It turns their world upside down. As we were told that monsters don't exist and these things don't exist. Well, what happens when you come face to face with one? And who do you talk to? And so, I really try to um, be as sympathetic as possible and understanding, and follow the guidelines with, what they want out there, what they don't want out there type of thing. So what if they don't want their name, things like that. So,
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely. You can tell by somebody's demeanor or their um, you know their response
mm-hmm,
that something happened, and they can't
mm-hmm,
process it, or they may have
mm-hmm.
tried to process it, but it's just something that's rarely happens. And let me ask you this,
Yeah.
Rod: is there a report or two that you
Mm-hmm,
have heard, or any witnesses you have talked to that stick out
mm-hmm.
more than others? And you don't have to say names, but the encounter
Yeah.
itself.
So it's in reference to the Medina River area. We have a Toyota plant now, by that area, by the Medina River. It would be more southwest, Bexar County, Medina County. There's an area called the Medina Natural Area, I believe. It's like a preserve, and it's out there by the Toyota plant. That Toyota plant is where all the tundras are built,
Okay.
and now there's a very famous bridge in that Medina River area. It's called Donkey Lady Bridge. Is what they call it. Yeah.
Uh,
So go ahead.
yeah.
Sorry.
No. I found that today. I told you earlier we had talked just
Mhm.
before we came on air, and
Yeah.
I had went down a rabbit hole, and that
Yeah.
was some of the rabbit hole. That's an
Yeah.
interesting story in itself.
Very interesting story. As a child growing up here, that was something that was told. I don't know if this is a growing up in a Hispanic family type of deal. It was always like the donkey lady's going to get you. You better be good. And you were like, oh, no, I'll be good. I don't want the donkey lady to get me. So that's how it was spun to us as kids. And, come to find out, there's some folklore that's kind of interesting that goes along with it. So this lady, and she's in her late 60s, maybe early 70s. She was a very, very nice lady. She was a member of my group on Facebook, and she messaged me wanting to talk about her encounter. And I said, yeah, absolutely. So I sat down on the phone with her, and she said, look, I've got nothing to lose by telling you this. I'm an old lady. I take care of my husband. I I don't know what to tell you other than I'm telling you the truth. And I said, no, I believe you. Let's go. So her sister and the daughter-in-law of the sister went out just to take a ride. The sister, I think, had been very ill, and she wanted to take her sister out, get some fresh air. Just she'd been in the house and just cooped up. So, hey, let's get out. And so they wanted to go to that Medina River natural area by the Donkey Lady Bridge. She said we parked in a spot where it kind of oversees a uh, almost like I think like a field. There's cactus and things like that around it, but it was kind of, a little bit flat. Wasn't really, hilly and things like that. And there was a big, I don't know if she said it was an oak tree or a cedar tree that was out there in the middle of the whole field area. And they were just sitting there, just rolling down the windows and just kind of just taking in the air and talking and, just enjoying the day. And she said she fixated on that one tree and was looking at it and thought there's something not right going on around there. She just felt something. And I believe that tree was probably, what'd you say, maybe about 80 yards, 85 yards away. It was far enough, but still close, kind of, you know what I mean? And so she was looking at that tree and she saw this hand come around it and grab the trunk of that tree, big black hand. And she's like, oh. And the sister was there looking the same. Then the daughter-in-law was there looking at it going, whoa, what the heck? This thing stood up on 2 feet, peeked around the tree, and proceeded to walk past the tree through the field. And she said it looked like the Patterson-Gimlin gate, that whole, type of
Right.
walk. And immediately, she was just mesmerized. She says, I looked at this thing. I saw it. I saw the color of its hair. She says, I couldn't see a lot of details, but she saw the anatomy and knew right away that it was a female because she saw the breasts. And Furthermore, she felt like that they were, she had been nursing. She saw them and said, she looked like maybe she had been nursing. And so, that was all moving around. She saw the gate. She said, I think it was a dark brown, black type of hair coming off the body, about 4 inches off the arms. Just very, very smooth gait. Nothing really awkward. It was just really very real smooth, which is what you hear with a lot of encounters of these people seeing these creatures walk. They walk very smooth, like it's almost like it's unreal to see this, the gait and the way they walk. And so she saw this thing and she just locked eyes with it, just looking at it. And she said it never lost sight of us as it was walking. It would watch us. And the daughter-in-law of the sister lost it. I mean, freaking out, which, I mean, you can't blame anybody, for losing it. They're looking at something that isn't supposed to exist, or they don't even know what it is. Right. But it's scary, freaking out. And so by the time this thing went behind, she said it went behind some kind of like a structure that was out there, like an old shed or something. It went behind that and it didn't come back out. The daughter-in-law was freaking out so bad that they had to back out and take off so she could, get her composure, and they had to get away because he said she was just unruly, just going crazy, freaking out. We got to go, just screaming and crying. And so they took off, and that was her, I wouldn't say her only sighting of a Sasquatch. And for some reason, I don't know why, I asked her, hey, by any chance, you've seen a Sasquatch? It's clearly what you saw from what you described. Have you ever seen an upright walking canine? And she said, yes. And at that time I was talking to her on the phone, she said, as a matter of fact, I saw it 2 weeks ago. I said, what?
Wow.
Are you kidding me? And
Are you serious?
Okay. I thought, is this lady putting me on? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're like, come on. Well, she happened to have her best friend that was there with her when they saw the creature at her house. She said, I can hand it over to my best friend, and she'll tell you the same story. She told me the story. It was a back road that they were going through from a restaurant that they like to go to. And they went through this back road just to get, I guess it gets them home a little bit quicker. There was no lights, it's an old country road. And they saw this canine in the middle of the road eating some roadkill. And the first thing she told me was like, there's no wolves in South Texas. That looks like a wolf. That's a giant wolf. Those things don't live here. And she thought it was a big wolf that got away. And she said the eyes were glowing, I think, yellow. So this thing, she put on the headlights on it. It was right in front of them. She didn't really tell me how far away, but she said far enough to where she could see the muzzle, the ears. You see, it looked like a big wolf, like almost like a husky, And so it was there. Feast on Roadkill. It looked up at her. She said when it looked up at her and locked eyes with her, she's like instant fear, like paralyzed. And wow. This thing locked eyes with her, casually got up on 2 feet, and that's when it really freaked him out. On 2 feet, got up, picked up the roadkill, and walked off. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. And then the best friend got on and told me the same story and was like, yep, this is exactly how it happened. And, I was like, wow, this is insane. So it's almost like I got a twofer with that lady. And, but yeah, no, that was one. One.
That is insane. That is crazy. Were there any discrepancies between their stories?
No. None. And again, I talk to a lot of people, professional, what have you. It doesn't matter what walk of life, it doesn't matter. I know one thing about country folks, and they don't pull your leg like that. They really don't.
Well, she had, apparently she had, and she probably had, and I'm not saying she's old, but her age,
Mhm.
I mean, what does she have to gain really
Right.
from telling you the story, you know?
Exactly. She's like, one of the first things was like, I'm telling you the truth. I'm old. I don't want nothing from this. I'm just telling you because this is what you do. And I know this is something that, could probably help you. Maybe, I think maybe she thought it'd help me kind of map out things a little bit better for me, which it did. But I mean, just seeing that much detail and then when you can put it up against other encounters that you've heard and it matches, you've got something. I don't know if this lady listens to Bigfoot podcast profusely like I do. I listen to a ton of encounters, and I can tell you, it's either dark brown, black, battleship gray skin, or reddish brown. All of these things that stick in your head with these encounters that you remember when it lines up like that. It's probably true. I mean, I felt like she was being genuine with me. So, I've got another one that the person had no idea what they were dealing with until I told them. Uh, if you want to hear that one.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, so a friend of a friend, uh, he has a sister, and they live in an area that is, it's more developed now. It runs off the. Let me back up here. There's two houses on the property, and it behind it is a tributary from the main creek that I researched, which is the Salado Creek. The Salado Creek's a very historical creek. Native Americans used it as a highway to go in and out of San Antonio. Fur trappers. There's actually a famous battle with the Spanish, on that creek. There's a lot of history, and there's tributaries that break off of that creek. And they lived in an area where it wasn't a subdivision, at least not back then it wasn't, because everything cities grow and they kind of, buy property and start developing it and things like that. So this was not developed. It was two houses on pier and beam, old school houses. They're probably ranch houses, I'm sure, because there's a lot of ranch land around here back in the day. And she moved into one of the smaller houses. The parents had the bigger house, and from what I understand, they were maybe like, I don't know, like 100 yards away from each other, more or less, on the same property. And then behind the back door, they face the same way. The back door, back backyard was kind of like that tributary of the Salado Creek. She said we would see deer and all kinds of wildlife back there. And it's private property. It's gated off. It was just those two houses. That was it back at that time. And I think we're talking about, maybe 8 years ago, maybe somewhere around there. And so she was telling me, because her brother wanted me to talk to her. She was telling me that she had a problem with her boys. They were getting scared and they were running out of their bedroom into her room, crying and screaming like crazy. And she had said, "What's wrong?" And so he had they had said, both of them had said, that there is a tall black man looking in their window at night. That's exactly the words that they said. And she's like, "What?" This happened twice. And then I guess after maybe that third time happening, or a third time happened, she put curtains up okay, that alleviates the problem, whatever, let's deal with that. And so they started, sleeping fine. They were good. And then she noticed that there was a smell from the back door, because I guess she'd left the back door open and the kitchen was by the back door, cooking. And she had this god awful odor, smelled like trash and wet dog and just nasty. And she would go out to inspect. And by the time she'd go out to inspect, it was gone. The odor was gone. So another weird occurrence. And then she was cooking again and something ran into the house, like boom, like pushed it, and shook the house. Now remember, the house is on pier and beam. If something's got some weight, you could move that house. That foundation isn't like, a concrete foundation or anything like that. Ran out to go inspect what it was, scared the heck out of her. Didn't see anything. And I had described to her that that's classic Sasquatch behavior. The window peeking, the slapping of the house or hitting the house, the odor, it all lined up. And once I told her that, she was like, "What?" She thought I was crazy. And I'm like, "Look, do your research. Listen to maybe some of these podcasts of some of these people that have had encounters with this creature, and you'll see that this is kind of classic Sasquatch behavior." And she's like, "Yep, I'm moving." And like the next month, she moved out into an apartment somewhere else. I was. Now, could I prove that it was a Sasquatch that was doing that? No, but again, what does the evidence point towards? It points towards that could possibly be that type of a creature, you know?
Yeah, it's putting the pieces of the puzzle together, and
Mm.
it's just like solving a mystery. You have this
Yeah,
piece and this piece and then
yeah,
that piece, and you put them all together, and then what else do you have?
right, right.
Uh,
And so the one thing that I have always learned is the evidence. And what does it point towards? Does it point towards this creature being uh, like existing? Yeah, and the answer I think is yes, because the evidence points towards all of it. It really does. So, I mean, God bless her. I mean, she took those boys and she got out of there because, and I don't know if she told her family, but I know that's where I kind of just like, yeah,
sure.
that's not my thing. I'm just letting you know what I know, and that was it. So,
All right.
yeah.
Well, apparently it was enough to scare her to make her make her have a
Yeah.
life-changing move.
Yeah. Not only that, I mean, if you've ever tried to look into somebody's window on Pier and Beam, a lot of times you have to be pretty tall to, you know what I mean? Like Pier
Exactly.
and Beam can get pretty high,
Did you
so
do a size comparison by chance on that? Or
I didn't get to get out there.
okay.
I think the parents were kind of weird about somebody like myself going out there and,
Sure.
doing stuff like that.
Yeah.
People just, they don't want to be messed with sometimes, and I understand. But the brother was telling her, like, you need to talk to Rod and tell him what's happened, what's going on. Maybe he can make sense of it. So he knew well enough to do that. So um, now they're sleeping in peace. So
Yeah. Rod, let me ask you this, transition a little bit.
mhm,
What do you think these tree structures are, and what do they mean?
mhm. Good question. Um, that's the $1 million question, isn't it? I mean, so I have a theory on some of them, what I believe some of them are for, because some of them that I've documented, I don't know if you've looked at my Instagram or any of that stuff and seen what I document. Some of it, you'll see the wood structure resemble like a little wigwam or an A-frame. It's got an opening, you can go inside. And a lot of times that opening is maybe 3-4 foot tall, maybe, 3 foot wide type of deal. And the pushback I get is, well, Rod, that's not big enough for a Sasquatch to fit in. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. You're right. And I got to thinking about some of this stuff. And, I got to thinking about animals that have little ones that have cubs or, little babies with them. When they go out to hunt, what do? They stash them away in a spot where they feel they're safe and they're covered up, camouflaged and protected. And then they go do their hunt, come back, bring the kill, then take the baby somewhere else, right?
Right.
So I feel like some of these, because of the size, could be for the little ones where they stash them away, put them in these little wood structures. They're covered up, they're camouflaged, and then take off, do their hunt, then come back, pick them up, and go.
That makes
And I
sense.
think that's what some of them are for. And yeah, it does make sense, because if you look at a lot of predatory animals with their young, they'll do that. Bears will do it, lions will do it, tigers, things of that nature. So it made sense for them to go that route as well. Now there's some that are really, really odd. Like there's some that are big pieces of tree, like huge trunks that are just laid over onto another tree. And then there's another big trunk that's laid over on top of it. And it looks like an X and all this weird looking type of stuff. And, none of it really makes sense. And I don't know what to make of that, because some of the behavior and I guess not the behavior, but some of the placement of these pieces of wood make no sense. There's nothing that this wood structure, what does it serve? It doesn't do anything. It doesn't keep out rain. It doesn't keep out wind. It doesn't keep out the elements. I mean, what are these things? Some of them I think might be markers for territory. I've heard that before, and I do believe that could be something. Um, some people believe that it's like a mathematical thing. I don't know. I was very bad in geometry. I wasn't very good in math, so I don't know. But I do believe that some of the smaller wood structures that have a covering with an opening, that are not as big, um, are probably for the little ones.
Right.
And I do believe this activity that is in my area uh, is happening at night. Obviously, because I think if it was during the day, somebody would have seen one. Because what I preach is I think is a little different from what a lot of other researchers preach. I preach the suburban Sasquatch. I believe that these creatures can and do go through suburban areas, given the right lay of the land, given the right situation. In this case, it's a big creek that goes right through San Antonio, and that's where people do their jogging and things like that sometimes, or mountain biking. But I do believe they are utilized as a highway, and I can't just say that and go, there you go. There's more to it. There's white-tailed deer in abundance in that area. There's all the usual suspects: possums, raccoons, squirrels. So now you've got a habitat that supports big game, which is the white-tailed deer. And then we've got a water source, or at least where I'm located, because I live on the Salado Creek. There's a water source about a mile away, a huge, huge pond. It's almost a lake. So there you go. You got a water source. And then the Salado Creek, at its most southern part in San Antonio, actually has a freshwater spring running through it with largemouth bass, crayfish, a lot of other, things that they could probably munch on and stuff like that. So you've got water sources, you've got a habitat that supports big game, you've got coverage. If I wanted to hide myself in the Salado Creek at night, you'd probably never find me. I mean, it's pretty dense. And now there's places where it's opened up a little more, and it's rocky and things like that. But there's other places where it's just super thick, and you won't be able to find anybody if they don't want to be found.
Right. Yeah. If you got water and you have a food source,
Uh-huh.
and they say they follow the waterways, and it makes total sense because you're going to have cover as well, more than likely. So
Absolutely.
the combo is there for something large
Absolutely.
to survive. Um,
Absolutely.
I was going to mention this to you prior to
Uh-huh.
us coming on. We have had activity on some family land, and I've mentioned
Mhm.
this a few episodes before, a recording of vocalizations, and never would have thought that there would have been anything like that around where I'm at.
Mm.
But on the other hand, when I got to thinking about it, there's tons of farmland, tons of water,
Mhm.
plenty of wildlife, deer, possums, raccoons,
Mhm.
um, frogs, crayfish, you name it. I was going down by our creek just recently, and I've had cameras down there, but I don't have any SD cards in them now. But there's tons
Mm.
of whitetail
Mm.
down there, and
Mm.
we were walking around the creek, and there's a game trail, but I was not paying attention to the game trail. I was trying to figure out why these two logs
Mhm.
were stood up like this
Mm.
in
Mhm.
the middle, or on each side of a tree. The tree that the live tree was holding them up,
Okay.
and they were rotted. And I'm my wife, and then Mason, who is 12 years old, that goes down there every once in a while. There's no other reason for someone or something to prop those up. They had to be propped up. And I
Mhm.
thought, surely
Mhm.
I'm reading into this,
Right. Right. Yeah.
and then I look down, and like you can definitely see a game trail. So going back to what other people have said, I think that it's possible that they could be game trail markers or
Mhm.
markers for hunting or food
I
source.
I believe that. Absolutely. And some of the wood structures that I've found um, are adjacent to game trails. They're close. You got the element of surprise, right? You've got a covering, you can hide behind, kind of peek over. And white-tailed deer, they're creatures of habit. They use the same darn trail all the time. I mean, these hunters, they know it's like clockwork. They know when to get up there and when to not get up there, things like that. They put feeders where there's an area where they know they kind of walk by, things like that. So, it would make sense. And I do believe these creatures are highly intelligent. So yeah, I do believe that. To your point, I believe that for sure. It makes sense. You
Right.
have a predatory animal that is of high intelligence, that's got the speed, the strength, So yeah,
Yeah,
I'm with
absolutely.
you.
Yeah, I agree, and I've heard other people say that as well, about the game trails, or game marker, and such,
Yeah,
but I didn't take any pictures of it, but I'm going to, and I'll send that to you, and you tell
yeah,
me what you think, and,
absolutely. I'd love to see that. Yeah,
'cause I was just kinda like, "No, you're just, you know, you're wanting to see this, but
right,
there's a
right.
game trail there," and then the more I got to thinking about it after I left that area, I thought, "Well, how did that get there?" And some of the stuff I have seen on your Instagram of
Mhm,
those tree structures, I
mhm.
mean, you can tell something with a thumb twisted those trees or made those
Yeah,
structures,
absolutely, absolutely.
it had to be. I mean,
I so here's what I tell you. Can people make this stuff? Yeah, absolutely they can. But the argument I think that just falls apart is this. I'll tell you this. Boy Scouts, okay? I have not seen a Boy Scout in almost 8 years of doing this. Not a Boy Scout, right? Bushcraft class. I've looked at the websites for the parks and wildlife around that area. There's nothing offered, right? And by the way, bushcraft, if it was bushcraft, the pieces would be consistent in size. There would be you know when a human puts things together. You know when a human puts things together. It's very consistent, and it's going to keep out some of the elements. That's what these things are made for, right? Homeless people. I don't know a homeless person that's going to put that much effort into putting this thing together. And by the way, the homeless people here, most of them have tents. They have tarps. They're not going to go out and tear out whole trees out of the ground and then fashion them into a teepee or an A-frame structure. I mean,
and you would see some type of evidence too of a human living there. I would
absolutely.
think. Yeah.
It would be apparent. Cigarette butts, bunch of beer cans, things that a human does. When you've got all of those things that you put it up against and you come up with nothing, I think there's a cryptid thing going on here. Now, I will say this. Does it mean that a human hadn't passed by one of these things and maybe like put their own little thing on it? Yeah, it could happen. I got you. But the origin of these things, I don't believe is human. I really don't. I think that, again, looking at the sizes of these pieces, and I make it a point in my videos to show you the size, the diameter, the length. Somebody was telling me, "Oh, well, it's kids out there playing and stuff like that." I said, I grew up in the '80s, and going out in the woods and playing and stuff like that. We did stuff like that, right? Maybe you did when you were
Yeah.
growing up. You did stuff like that, out in the woods playing army or whatever, and whatever, right? Building
Right.
little tree forts. We did that. Name one child right now that's going to get off their phone and go out in the woods and start doing this stuff. There's very, very little, a low percentage of children that are going to do, are kids that are going to do that. It just doesn't happen. I'm a father of two teenagers and, two young adults that are in their 20s. They're not going to do that, So then you got to ask yourself, what is it, or who is it, And then I was talking to a buddy of mine years ago, that gave me he did my first podcast interview. Um, he's in the BFRO too. And he said, Rod, he said, you're forgetting the fact that there is a low percentage of people that know about these things. So
Right.
the chances of it being hoaxed are very, very slim. Because I thought there's people out there that are doing this and they're putting me on. Like they're watching my channel and they're looking at where I'm at and they're going back and they're doing this. And he's like, no, he's like, there's a very, very low percentage of people that know about this stuff.
Yeah.
And he said, so you could kind of eliminate that. I said, okay, well, I got you on that. So, the other thing is this, some of these wood structures are built. The latest video I put out was one that was smack dab in the playground in this wilderness park.
I saw that.
So again, the question is, well, it's kids, Rod. It's the parents that are helping them. And I was a family member that told me this. And I said, okay, let's say you were the parent of a child, let's say about 7 or 8 years old, and you help this child build this thing. Okay, who's picking up those big pieces? Number one, right? And are you tearing them out of the ground because they're torn, they're ripped? There you go. So how strong do you possibly have to be to do this? Number two, when you put this together, would you feel comfortable with your child playing inside of this? Knowing it could collapse, it could hurt the child, or God forbid, be fatal with these big pieces. Would you feel comfortable with children playing in this stuff, knowing that you built it and, blah, 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 whatever? No, there's no parent, at least for me, I wouldn't let my kids play and stuff like that. I'd be like, hey, get out of there. Something, it could fall. They're not nailed together. They're not glued together. They're not tight, So again, what is it? and the boldness of putting it in the playground, it's amazing. This last one, if you saw the video, there is a piece of couple of pieces of twigs that are tied together with this looks like what appears to be some type of rope. And I was looking at the rope, and what it was long strands of cedar you can pull off, okay? And they were twisted, not woven, twisted to look like rope, and then wrapped around these twigs for whatever reason. It made no sense. So now we're talking about tool construction, or I don't know. It's really weird. Yeah. But you have to look at this and go, this is very odd behavior. It's very odd behavior, and that's why I do it, because I mean, will I get answers in my lifetime? Probably not, but I would hope that when I'm long gone, that what I present and what I've contributed sheds a little bit more light, maybe another piece of the puzzle type of thing,
Right.
So
absolutely. Yes. I'm going to plug your Instagram, because if you have not seen Bexar County, and it's Bexar County, but it's pronounced Bear.
Yep. Bear. Yep.
You need to go check it out. It's got some awesome stuff on there, some really neat finds, and some very interesting tree structures. No doubt.
They blow my mind, honestly. I mean, every time I find something different, I'm like, whoa, this is weird. I will say this. Before we plug anything, I've taken 2 scientists out with me.
Okay.
One of them is a PhD in chemistry and DNA studies from Harvard University. The other one is a wildlife biologist from North Texas University, and both of them have no answer for me. None.
That's very interesting. That's neat as well.
What do you do when you've got these scientists and they're like, this is incredible. What is it? I don't know.
Yeah, especially you mentioned wildlife biologist, and they can't explain.
Well, I took him to a couple of tree structures. One of them that was really huge, where he was like over 6 foot, more or less. He could stand up in this thing. Now, this was one that was giant. I called it the Beast. If you look back at some of my stuff, you'll probably see a little snippet or a little title called the Beast. And that's one of the ones that is giant, huge. I found that one back in late 2018 when I started getting going and stuff. And it was amazing. But this guy, I brought him to a spot where I had found a doe carcass that was almost picked clean. But the thing that was really intriguing about this doe carcass was that her torso was broken in half. Her hindquarters were over here. Her front was over here. Her head was pulled off the neck, and then the head was pulled apart. Bottom jaw over here, top jaw over here, and then legs pulled off and strung about. 4 legs strung about. So he got down in there. because I wanted to show him. I thought, this is very interesting. What do you make of this? And he grabbed it and he put it together. And when he put the torso together, the spine bowed like this, where it broke like that. And he said, something with great force broke this back, and tore it in half. And I said, okay, let's play devil's advocate here. Homeless people. He's like, no. He's like, you would have to be the king of homeless people to chase this thing down, break it in half, and tear its head off and all of that stuff. I said, there you go. So, and he had no answer for me either. So interesting.
Wow. That's pretty amazing. Yeah. For something to, and I've heard legs being pulled apart, not just on deer, but on wild boar, wild hogs. Yeah. So that makes sense. And that points towards, what else can it be? That's where you start putting the pieces of the puzzle together,
You're absolutely right. Does the evidence point towards the reliability of these creatures existing? And the answer to me is yes, it does. It absolutely does.
Right. Well, Rod, can you tell the listeners what you've got coming up in 2026? Any events or any investigations?
So hopefully we're going to reschedule a symposium that I'm doing here in town in San Antonio. It's called Symposium of the Strange. There's a website for it where you can look at the future symposiums that are coming up. Hopefully I was supposed to do one in December, and due to scheduling constraints, things like that, I wasn't able to do it. So hopefully in February we're able to do that. So look out for that, Symposium of the Strange. I'm speaking at the Arkansas Cryptid Fest in June. I've got the flyer on my Instagram. So if you look up that flyer, it'll give you I can't remember the date escapes me, but I'll be speaking at that conference as well. And hopefully I get more bookings for more conferences. I would love to get out and speak. I think that what I present is very viable, and it's not spoken about enough. I really don't. Now I get it. It is kind of boring because it's not the class A's and, it's, all that stuff, but it is a viable piece of the puzzle. And I do believe what I present is it's real stuff. So, that's what I got going on, other than, a podcast interview here and there as well. So that's about it.
Well, good deal. Well, yeah. And how often do you get out and do investigations? Man,
I used to be out like every day. The responsibility of life gets to you with job, and me and my wife are expecting in March.
Congratulations!
We're prepping. Thank you. We're prepping for it, and then in July we're gonna have a grandbaby.
Awesome.
So I got two things. I got two
You've
babies
got a lot
coming.
going on.
So,
yeah.
But I try to get out at least three days out of the week if I can, and keep tabs on my areas. I'm looking to scout out new areas that run up against a major creek or a river. That's what I typically go for. That's the only way I'll get out, is if the lay of the land makes sense and the habitat supports big game. I can't go to a patch of woods and just say we're going to find activity. That doesn't make sense. You have to look at the topography and be smart about this, and look at is there a creek, is there a greenway, is there a river that runs through this? Does the habitat support big game, water source, things of that nature? But yeah, I try to get out about three times a week.
Gotcha.
3 days out of the week if I can.
Okay. Yeah, that makes total sense about the waterways. We talked about that earlier. You just that's a good place to start.
It is.
Sure.
Absolutely it is. Yeah.
Rod, at the end of each episode, we do a rapid fire Q&A. I'll ask you 3 questions, and it's the first thing that comes to your mind. It's just casual.
Sure.
All right, you ready?
Good. Yep.
All right. What's your favorite time of year to go squatching?
Winter.
Okay. What's any particular reason?
Because the summers are so hot here, the activity goes to a standstill. And I think if you're an 8-foot biped covered in hair, you probably wouldn't want to be out in the heat as well. So winter is a prime time.
Gotcha. All right. Favorite cryptid other than Bigfoot?
Dogman.
Yeah. Gotcha. All right. Number 3, favorite Bigfoot TV show, past or present?
Expedition Bigfoot.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good one. I got
just a better way of looking at things, I think.
Yeah. I got to meet Biko, right? I think was on the season, I believe. Met
Right
him
on,
at Glide Sasquatch Festival out in Oregon this past summer. Super guy, really nice.
Right on. Yeah, it's great to meet these guys,
Oh
man. It
yeah,
really is.
that was so cool. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
man.
Well, Rod, tell everyone where they can find you on social media.
Instagram is the most active. I've connected with a lot of people on Instagram. So Instagram, it would be Bexar County Bigfoot, all one word, Bexar County Bigfoot. Instagram, a TikTok as well, Bexar County Bigfoot, same thing. YouTube, Bexar County Bigfoot. I do have a private group that's on Facebook. It's Bexar County Bigfoot. It may be under the Bexar County Bigfoot Project, but nevertheless, it's the same thing, Bexar County Bigfoot. I do keep it small. I keep it private. And I do screen everybody that comes through, only because there's just so much craziness with and ugliness. I really don't want that in my group, so I try to keep it a little small. I do have another. It's more of an open group. It's called South Texas Monster Hunters, and we're looking at about, I think, 1,600, 1,700 people on that. And then I also admin for Owens Outdoors, which Harley Owens, shout out Harley Owens,
Okay.
and my friend Drewski from Cryptid Warfare as well. And then I do admin another group called Bigfoot 101. So I'm busy on Bigfoot stuff.
Gotcha. Well, I'll put a link in the description for some of your social media.
Yeah.
So people can keep up, with what's going on and check out your stuff, because it's really, really neat. Really is.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. Bexar County Bigfoot, Instagram and YouTube are probably the more active ones, I think. So
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Well, God
Yes,
bless
sir.
you, brother. It's good to talk to you and
God
have you
bless
on.
you, man.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I
Thank you
enjoyed
so
it.
much. Appreciate you.
And for the listeners, if you've had an encounter or an experience, send us an email at the Cryptid Crew Podcast at gmail.com. Thank you for listening, and God bless.